Hello and welcome to Breaking Bread with Rivaaj Maharaj, where nothing is off the table. For today's episode, I want to talk about a post that I've come across on X regarding some comments made by Vladimir Putin. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I've come across a post by RTSG News, and it's entitled, Watch, Putin gave a direct message to citizens of Western countries. He said that the truth is that the problem you are facing now are the result of years of action by the ruling elites of your own countries. They do not think about how to improve your lives. They are obsessed with their own selfish interests and excessive profits. And, again, while, many might agree or disagree with this, or many might like or dislike Putin, I'm not here to convince you either way. All I'm saying to you is that, irrespective of what you think of this man, there's a lot of sense in what he is saying. When you look around, you constantly encounter people, especially in the UK, in Western Europe, who keep saying, I don't understand what is going on. I don't understand why the country has allowed to become what it is. I don't understand why we are embracing these, stupid, mad policies. It looks like we're cannibalizing our country from within. Why are we allowing this to happen? You hear all these comments and so many more, and it just doesn't make sense. But, again, what you might think of Vladimir Putin is immaterial. There is a lot of truth to what he is saying. The position we find ourselves in are not because we willed or wished it to happen. You had a section of society that has now become emboldened with a set of values and policies that make absolutely no sense if you think of the world in terms of how the world has always run. If you think of madness, chaos, and if that's something you embrace, then these policies make sense to you. But for the normal, rational human beings, the ones that have always, lived and, abided by the laws and, just wanted some semblance of authority and law and order within their countries and, formality, it just doesn't make sense. It's all gone out the window. And this group of society that has, that embraces this kind of madness has managed to infiltrate the universities, the schools, get into the bureaucracy, get into the police, get into the army, get into, the political infrastructure of the countries. And this is where you see a doubling down of these insane policies to the point where now it's become the norm. It's been promulgated and it's now become the norm. And when you take a step back and you look at, there's a few that benefit from this, but that's it. The majority of what is going on is not in any way, shape, or form helpful to the common man on the street. These parents, some of them are doing 2 and 3 jobs. There's a lack of parenthood within the families. That is why you find that the crime rates amongst the youth in London is so bad, because there's an absence of authority figures within the family unit in the homes. Parents are barely struggling to make ends meet. In order to do that, they have to now go out and do 2 and 3 jobs just to be able to put food on the table. Then you've got households being run by kids because the parents are absent, they're at work. And in that void, you have gangs taking, kids moving into gangsterism, drugs, and, it's tearing at the social fabric of our society, the moral fabric of our society. And again, think whatever you want of him. He is telling you the truth. Putin is telling you the truth.
Хочу, чтобы меня услышали и простые граждане западных государств. Вас сейчас настойчиво пытаются убедить в том, что все ваши трудности – это результат каких-то враждебных действий России, что из вашего собственного кошелька надо оплатить борьбу с мифической русской угрозой. Все это ложь. А правда в том, что текущие проблемы, с которыми сталкиваются миллионы людей на Западе, стали результатом многолетних действий правящих элит их государств. их ошибок, близорукости и амбиций. Эти элиты думают не о том, как улучшить жизнь своих граждан в западных странах. Они одержимы своими корыстными интересами и сверхприбылями. Хочу, чтобы меня услышали и простые граждане западных государств. Вас сейчас
Because a handful of people benefit from this. Those businesses that are paying cheap labor, that have got people coming in working, long hours, earning peanuts, so that profits can go into these businesses and make, the directors and the owners and the shareholders wealthy. They're the only people that benefit. I work in an industry, I'll tell you, come in and go into the hospitality industry and you see it evident. You meet people that are doing 2-3 jobs a day, going from one to another to another. You see people sleeping in the change rooms because, they don't have time to go home. They then have to go on to their next job. And when you're working, you hear them on the phone with their kids because there's not enough food in the house, or there's nobody to cook food, or the 10-year-old is looking after the 2-year-old and the 5-year-old. It's insane. We're not doing anything to help our people. We're actually harming them. We're harming them at the expense of these elites that are making money, enjoying themselves at the expense of the rest of society. And, rather than these politicians walking back and saying, look, we've made mistakes with our energy, let's do a deal with the Russians and let's get that energy, because at the end of the day, it helps our people. They can't be bothered. They cannot be bothered. I used to work with a woman that was 92 years old. I used to work with a woman that is 92 years old. She's still alive. She works harder than most 18 and 20-year-olds that I know. She does 2 jobs a day. Comes and works as a waitress, goes and looks after other people. So she cares for other elderly that are infirmed and can't be moved around. She has to rely on public transport, struggles to make ends meet, paying for electricity bills, energy bills. And this is a woman that went through the Second World War. During the Second World War, her brother was shipped off up to the Midlands because during the Second World War, London was a bit dangerous because the Germans were bombing. So families voluntarily looked after other families' kids, all part of a war effort, a communal effort by the British populace. This is an English woman who made sacrifices, only today to be told that she can't afford electricity. That's your problem. The government is not there to help, but you'll get immigrants getting off the boat at Calais, are housed, fed, given monthly stipends, given mobile phones and free education, free travel. When it's their religious holidays, get money for it. And here's a woman that has contributed to the society, a British woman, 92 years old, has to still work to support herself. What life is that at 92? What life is that? These are the years she should be living comfortably, looked after by a state that what we are reaping now, the benefits we are reaping now, the system everybody is sponging off now, was created by somebody like her. And when it's time for her to enjoy the benefits of what sacrifices she made in her youth, she's being told, not going to happen. So just think about that for a second, because this is the reality on the ground. This is not the reality in Keir Starmer's house. This is not the reality in Sadiq Khan's house. When they need to go somewhere, they're chauffeur driven in bulletproof vehicles. They're flown all over the world. They've got people groveling at their feet, wanting to stuff their pockets with money so that they can get favors. They eat what they want when they want. They need to come down to reality. Come down and see kids that have to only eat 1 meal a day, that go to school without having any breakfast. Because every time they stand up in the pulpits and spout all this bullshit and this nonsense, and all the time they give to people that haven't contributed to the system, they harm their own people. So Think what you want of Vladimir Putin. What he is telling you is the gospel. It is true because you see it happening every day around you. So I want to thank you for spending time with us. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe as it helps us with the algorithm and it helps our channel to grow.